The Cadillac VISTIQ is Cadillac's baby Escalade. It's a 3-row SUV, replaces the XT6 in the lineup, but it's all electric and it's very impressive. And in this video, I'll cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talk about the kind of efficiency you can expect and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition these days. And so, as far as the 2026 VISTIQ, well, this is the first model year of this brand new, larger vehicle. It's based on the same platform as the Lyriq. It actually has the same battery and the same wheelbase as the Lyriq, but it's 8.9 inches longer than the Lyriq to make room for that third row and just the larger proportions of this vehicle in general. It's taller, it's wider, it's very much a lot larger and a nice step up and a nice middle ground between the Lyriq and of course the Escalade IQ that sits above it. And so as far as the front end there, you have this signature now front end on these new all EV Cadillacs that I think looks so good still. You have those slender little accent lights that do your turn signals in the top. You have the waterfall LEDs in the lower part of the front bumper that are nice and low there and give you great light output. You also have that illuminated grille that will welcome you and give you a little departure animation as well. And it's just so cool. I love that lit up shield at night. It just makes a statement and helps us to stand out on the road, and just such a cool look. This one also is in this opulent blue metallic, and it's a beautiful color for this car and really looks great. Coming down to the sides, we have 21-inch wheels here as standard. You can go up to the bigger wheels on higher trims. This one we're looking at is actually just a sport trim, which is actually kind of one of the lowest trims here. This one comes in at a relatively attainable $81,000 compared to the more expensive $95,000 of the upper ones. So this is actually, a lower one, and I'll be able to show you in this video what you get for that money. And do you need to spend the extra $15,000? Stay tuned. But, I think that's debatable. But anyway, otherwise, this one has the black roof and black mirror caps and the painted door handles, and again, just very tall and very large. I also like that little accent window treatment you have there for the rear quarter window. And then going out to the back there, you can see you have a mix of taillight inspiration. So you have the top part there, which I think is a little bit more inspired by some of the lower Cadillac EVs, but then you have those bar taillights in the lower part there that are reminiscent of the Escalade IQ. And I just think it's a really cool look. It's something different instead of just a regular bar or a regular full width kind of thing you see on a lot of other stuff. And so it gives you some extra, visual differentiation. And I like that it looks different than everything else in their lineup. Every single one of these Cadillacs, although they have a similar front end, have unique back ends for all of them, and I just really like that. Now, otherwise though, it's just kind of a nice and squared off back end there. They didn't try and do any kind of coopy thing with this. It's supposed to be practical, and I'm glad that they kept that first and foremost with the design. But I think overall, from every angle, this thing just really has presence because of its size, but also because of the incredibly good looks they gave it here. Just a really nice thing to, turn around and look back at whenever you leave it in a parking lot. The interior of the 2026 VISTIQ is very nice. I love these new Cadillac interiors. They're so well done. I just love the materials. You have lots of metal, you have lots of leather, you have some really nice just finishes to everything, and it all is very cool, and combined with the technology, it's a nice blend of old school kind of craftsmanship with the new school kind of high-tech stuff. And there are a few things that I can still complain about, and you'll hear that here in this segment. But as far as the basics, so again, this is a sport trim, so this is one of the lowest trims, and this really shows off just how well equipped these are from the factory as standard without going up for the higher trims here. So first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have these really nice soft seats. I love how Cadillac does their seats in all the EVs. They are so plush and so squishy for the leather. They're perforated, they're heated, ventilated, and massaging as standard. These are features that most others charge you big bucks for, if it's even available. And the fact that it's all standard here is great. And also with the heating, the cool thing GM does is you can have just your back or your back and your bottom, which is kind of a nice touch if you just, want to get some back relief, if you have back pain, things like that. Great to have that. I think GM is still the only one that does that. So I love that. The massage is pretty nice. Now, it's not the most advanced massage in the world, but one, it's free, and two, it's I've got a bunch of different programs to choose from, and it's actually a very nicely done massage, so very happy with that. Haven't tested the cooling here because it's a little bit cooler now, but typically Cadillac does pretty good cooled seats as well. Moving on to the steering wheel, I have to say this is probably one of the prettiest wheels in the industry. I mean, you have all this metal. You have also the Super Cruise here at the top, so you have some black there. Now, you do have some piano black for the finishes around the buttons. And thankfully, all these buttons do have little notches to them, so you can actually feel stuff without having to look down at it, which is great. But you can see it does get a little, you know, gross after a while if you don't keep up with cleaning it and wiping it down. But thankfully, you know, just all the metal buttons and stuff are just so nice. A great 9-3 grip too. It's a heated steering wheel as standard as well, which is also very nice. And yeah, just a really well done wheel. Even just like the other little things I usually don't talk about, like the turn signal and the gear selector stalks, how they have some metal trim on the ends of them, and everything just feels, you know, just a little bit of a cut above the rest in so many ways. Moving on to the gauge cluster here though. So that's one thing that's carried over from Lyric. It's the 33-inch curved display, and it's all very well done with the way that it works and pretty simple. A lot of the stuff people have already been familiar with from Escalades and other things. So you'll feel right at home here, with one major exception I'll get to in a second. But you know, so you have the gauge cluster, which you can't customize too much. There are a few different views, so that's nice. You can have, you know, like a sport look for the gauges. You can have it just be, you know, your efficiency or a giant map view. You know, it's really cool, and that's all controlled here with this little touch panel on the left hand side, and it all works very nice. I do wish there was more customization though. Like the left widget there, you can change to like that air quality meter, you can take away, you can put tire pressure monitoring in there, and you know, one or two other things, but it's pretty limited. The right hand side is usually just going to be either your navigation instructions or you know, audio, and that's pretty much it. You can't really change that as much as I would like. But the other thing that you don't get here on this sport trim, the one big thing you are missing, is a head-up display. That is only, again, on those higher trims. And if you do go for that head-up display, it is an augmented reality head-up display. The first time Cadillac has done that. So it will actually project the instructions for your next turn and stuff a little further down the road, as far as, you know, how you're seeing it visually through the windshield there. And a very cool thing to have if you like head-up displays. Maybe that's, you know, one of the things that's worth going up for these higher trims for. But personally, I don't love head-up displays. They don't work great with sunglasses that are polarized and stuff. So honestly, not a huge loss for me, but just know that is available if you want it. Now, moving over to the other portion of this display, that's of course your touchscreen, and this is the same system that, you know, Cadillac has used for many years now. But one key difference between this and Lyric is that this does not have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. I've ranted about this a lot. I will try and keep this concise. Basically, if you haven't bought a car in the last 10 years, you won't know what you're missing, so you'll probably be fine. If you have bought a car in the past 10 years and you have, you know, gotten used to CarPlay or Android Auto, you know, it's just going to come down to how many apps you use that aren't in the Google Play Store. If all of your apps are in the Google Play Store, then, you know, the only downside is you got to sit here for an hour and log into every single thing in every single app, like just like you're buying a new phone and logging into everything. You know, you have to do that. But as long as all of your apps are available in the system, which isn't all of them, but if you do have everything, you know, it'll be a minor change and not a big deal. If you are an Apple user like myself, it comes down to how much you're in the Apple ecosystem. You know, you don't have any of the Apple apps in here. So, you know, you have no Apple Music, you have no Apple Maps, you have no Apple Podcasts. You know, take your pick. Any of that baked in Apple stuff you're not going to have here. And regardless of what operating system you use, I think the big downgrade to me is text messaging. That's the biggest thing. If you don't ever do, you know, any voice texting in your car, it's going to be fine. Or if you like just audibly saying everything and, you know, not picking up a conversation or whatever, like you just have limited functionality. It will do voice texting, but it's just you being like, text this person, say this, and you have to do everything voice instead of, for me, it's a little less distracting to be able to click on a conversation and then Siri comes up, you say what you want to say, and that's it. Or you can do tap backs with CarPlay. You're missing a lot of functionality here. Maybe someday it'll get better. You know, this is capable over-the-air updates, but as it is, it's just a worse texting experience. And then it just comes down to, you know, the apps that you use as far as, you know, but as an Apple user, it's a deal breaker to not have CarPlay. And that's the one gigantic caveat of this, in my opinion. You know, GM says that their system is better, and now the Google Map integration you have in here is beautiful, and it does do some more integrated stuff, like it'll precondition the battery if you're, you know, navigating to a charger, and it knows that. Also, it's now tied in with Super Cruise for VISTIQ for the first time, so it will navigate interchanges if both roads are Super Cruise enabled. And I tested that out, and, you know, it will actually, you know, get you into the right lane and get you off the exit there. So, you know, you have that integration. That's kind of part of their justification for saying you're not allowed to use Apple Maps or whatever. But, you know, it still is just it's taking away choice, and they essentially want you to be using their stuff. It's their way or the highway, and that's because they think that their way is the best way. But I think giving people the choice also wouldn't be bad for people who don't agree with GM that their way is the best way. Also, I'm sure they are going to, take a cut of the data connection you have to constantly subscribe to in order to keep all these internet-based things working after the trial period. So I think there's some of that as well, but I digress. Otherwise, everything works really well. Going through your radio stations is nice and easy to do. Another downside is with my iPhone, I'm just doing Bluetooth audio streaming. So you have low res album art and, not as high of a quality source unless you, again, use Tidal or something like that you log into. So there's a little bit of a downgrade there. But one thing I will say while we're on the topic of audio is this vehicle comes standard with the 23 speaker AKG stereo. And the fact that that's standard also, most others will charge you big money for that many speakers in this segment. And the fact that you get it as standard here is great. It has Dolby Atmos, and it is fantastic. We have headrest speakers, we have speakers in the ceiling, and it is a fantastic experience. Even with just Bluetooth audio streaming, really an impressive sound experience. I love listening to my music here in this all week. It's been so nice, and it's just, I'm so impressed with all of these Cadillac stereos. They do such a good job in all these modern things. My only other little complaint with that is that you're forced to choose between having the sound be front biased or rear biased. There's no center option. And I don't know why, but if you want to have everyone enjoy it in the vehicle, you're not going to be able to have it. You either have rear seat take priority or the front. Kind of a strange choice there, but either way, it sounds fantastic. It's powerful enough. You have even speakers in the third row and everything. So everyone's going to have a good sound experience, just regardless of how you have that set up. Now, coming down, one other change from Lyriq is you don't have the wonderful, nice row of physical climate controls. You've now gone to a screen. This is inspired by Escalade IQ. And I think there's an argument to be made both ways as far as, your personal preference. This screen is certainly nice. It makes it feel more high-tech. And, thankfully, it's pretty simple, so you don't have to look down here that often. Obviously, you have auto climate control is standard and things like that. So you're probably not going to mess with this too much. That is also where you'll see, again, those massage controls and all the other basic stuff there. And this does have 5-zone climate control as well, so you have all the different controls there for that, which is great too. And just a nice little screen, but it is, again, another fingerprint magnet. It's got, all the dust and stuff that comes on it, and so just not ideal. Personally, I prefer the Lyriq having the regular buttons instead, but this is fine too. You also do still have a nice controller here to control the infotainment screen if you would like to, not get fingerprints on that and stuff. It's a beautiful control as well, and I love the little shortcut buttons and the nice volume scroller with the knurled metal, and more knurled metal around your cup holders here is great. And then moving on to the storage spaces here in the VISTIQ, that is really well done. A ton of storage, even more than Lyriq, and very well done. So first off, in the middle here, you will see behind this little HVAC screen, you have dual Qi wireless charging pads. That's also standard. That's a very high-end thing. Very few vehicles even offer double charging pads, and the ones that do, it's, again, a top kind of option thing. Not here in this. It's standard. It's a rubberized surface with brackets, so holds your phone in place pretty well. And I'd like to see a little bit of an angle here, though, to hold it, vertically a little bit better, but otherwise, really great. And you have USB-C jacks there for both driver and passenger if you want to wire it in as well. And then beneath that, you'll see another bin. Now, this one is a little tricky to reach the whole thing just because of the angle, but it's a huge extra bonus space just to maybe stash some stuff you're not using all the time. You also have another little bonus pocket right here by your knees, and you can fit like a garage door opener in there, or a small pack of gum, things like that. Now in this area, I will say that with this vehicle having Super Cruise, you're going to be spending a lot of the time maybe with your legs kind of resting up against this center, and it's a nice material. It's kind of got this vinyl wrap to it with the stitching, but I wish that was padded a little bit more, because that would make this feel extra luxurious. I'm nitpicking here, but because a lot of the competitors don't have padding in this area either, but to make it extra plush, that would be one thing I'd like to see for a top kind of trim thing, or for a refresh someday. Another thing is the center armrest is pretty firm too. I wish that was more heavily padded, but it's not too big of a deal, and still pretty nice to rest your elbow on. And anyway, you open that up and you'll see another USB-C jack and a nice felt lined pocket in there that's pretty deep, not huge, but again, because you have all these other spaces, completely fine. And yeah, the other thing here to mention before we go to the back is that you have this beautiful panoramic moonroof as standard as well. And it does have a cover over it, so that's a key advantage over some of the others that sometimes don't have that. And so you can close it up, and you actually can open it as well. So it's an opening roof and it has a cover. And that's rare. A lot of these big glass roofs don't open up, so I love that that does open. Now moving on to the second row here in the VISTIQ, it's a pretty good amount of space. I'd say it's pretty close to the same kind of space you get in Lyriq as far as the second row goes, even with the seat slid all the way back. So there's no real gains there. I'm 5'9", sitting behind myself. I still have several inches of legroom with the seat slid all the way back. And even if I slide the seat a little bit farther forward to make more room for the third row, I still even have, some decent space there. Obviously, you'll have more or less depending on your driver and passenger situation and all that. But, it's a decent amount of space. Plenty of headroom, of course, as well. And when they look forward, they'll see their own climate control screen there, which is cool. And they can turn on their heated seats, which also are standard here. No ventilated seats, I don't believe in these for the second row. But, again, that's another thing where I think most of the competitors don't offer that either. Otherwise, just does your basics there. You also will see whenever you look down further that you have air vents. There's also air vents in the B pillar. So great to have, the multi-directional air vents there. You also see 2 more USB-C jacks back there and also a regular plug to plug in, whatever you want, video game console or something like that back there. And then you'll also see a drawer that pulls out there with your 2 cup holders. And they also have, nice little center armrests in those seats as well, and also pockets in those doors. Speaking of pockets, I forgot to mention up front here, you have a pretty nice sized pocket as well. Going into the third row there of the VISTIQ. So this third row, it's not going to be enormous. If you want, a bigger third row, I think Escalade IQL will probably be the way to go, or just go for, regular Escalade or something like that. But it's a pretty decent third row there. So again, me being 5'9", sitting behind the second row seat where it's slid all the way rearward as far as it will go, it's a tight squeeze. I'm kind of just straddling the seat there. I wouldn't want to be back there for a long period of time, but it works in a pinch. Thankfully, there's plenty of headroom there because they made this seat bottom pretty low. If you, do move the seat up a little bit, then it does get a lot more livable. So it just comes down to how flexible your second row occupants are. And getting into that third row is also nice and easy. There's a button there, and you can see getting even out of it, there's a button for those third row passengers too. And then it just springs itself forward really quickly, actually. Very well done. Some other electrically operated second row seats are really slow on some of the competitors. I love how fast this is. Also, when you're back there, you'll see they have their own little cubby, a cup holder, and a USB-C jack, air vents, and also, like I said, the speakers there, and even their own little glass roof. Now, that part does not have a cover, so take note of that, but it's so far back, hopefully people that are sitting back there aren't sitting back there too long to get annoyed by that for a long period of time. Now, moving on to the cargo space here in the VISTIQ. Obviously, it's going to have a little bit less because of the fact that it's, got that third row there. You can thankfully drop the third row. It's power operated if you, don't need the third row. But even if you do need the third row, it's going to be pretty much average like any other 3-row crossover, gas or electric. They all kind of have the same space back there. You have a nice little pocket there. And the nice key perk here with these is, being electric, you have a nice deep well there, so you can fit, a really large duffel bag or maybe even a small carry-on size, suitcase in there. So there is some extra capability behind that, and also some stacking ability, of course, especially because you have a camera rearview mirror as standard, so you can load up back there as much as you want, and you won't be blocking your view at all, which is great. But again, if you want to have more space, Escalade IQ does have a slightly larger cargo area in the back. That's not huge, but you will, be able to go to the Escalade IQL, where you have the most amount of space if you want an electric Cadillac there and you want to have a large third row and also a decent amount of cargo space. But still, neither of them are going to beat the regular gas Escalade ESV. That's going to really be the way to go if you want to have 3 rows of people and enough space for all their stuff as well. So yeah, otherwise though, to turn this vehicle on, it's got the regular Cadillac key. I do love that we have a regular fob, unlike some of the others that are kind of getting weird with fobs these days. We have a regular fob with buttons, and you do have the Cadillac app where you can remote unlock stuff and all that, but it's not super fast, so you're going to want to just stick with the key, which is great for me because this is always reliable. It always works. There's no weirdness like you get with, I complained about this with the Rivian that I had for a week earlier this year and others, so I love that we have a regular key. But the thing with the VISTIQ is it doesn't have any start button. That is a difference between this and the Lyriq. So this, you just, sit down, put your foot on the brake, and it turns everything on automatically. And then You do have a couple buttons, so if you want to turn the vehicle off manually, there's a button to do that, and it will shut everything down if it gets confused, because it sometimes will get confused with, does it need to be on, does it need to be off? And also you have another button there to manually leave the car on for an hour, up to an hour, if you are going to be getting out and you want to have the heat stay on or whatever for occupants in the back or something like that. You can keep it going. So I like that we have those manual controls so that it's not trying to be all-knowing and always figure everything out. Like, it allows you to have that adjustability if you need it. So anyway, yeah, just leave your key in your pocket, hit the brake, and you're ready to go. All right, so setting off here in the VISTIQ. So the first thing you notice about it, I think the first thing that I'm noticing is you do really sit up a good bit higher. It does feel bigger than like our Lyriq, for example, and feels very substantial and large. So you have great visibility though, thankfully, still pretty nice thin A-pillars, great view out of the sides. The side mirrors are a little small, but it hasn't been an issue or anything this week, just, kind of might be something you notice initially. But again, standard camera rear view mirror, so always a fantastic view out of the back. If you don't like using it, you still have a normal kind of SUV view out of the back window there if you want it. But I mean, I love the camera being standard because, if you have this thing loaded up with people or stuff, you're always going to have a clear view there with the camera, and it's worked great this week. Other things here that I really love about these, the way Cadillac sets up their EVs for all the driver inputs are, I think, actually spot on for this segment and this kind of buyer. So you have a very relaxed throttle response. It's not so relaxed that it's dead feeling or anything. It's just, it's more gradual, and so it allows you to drive this vehicle incredibly smoothly. And brakes also are very well done. Some other brands, especially luxury brands, really struggle with doing a smooth brake pedal still. I've complained about this in Mercedes EQS SUV, for example, versus this is totally normal. Even if you're coming out of a gas Escalade or something like that, you'll hop into this and it's going to feel nice and easy to be smooth with. Feels exactly how you're expecting it to. There's no weirdness at all, and it's just good. And again, you won't even notice any kind of regen happening or anything like that because it's just, again, so well done. And other things that I'm really impressed with, so it's really quiet in here if you haven't noticed. We have active noise cancellation as standard once again, and that combined with just, again, the quieter nature of an EV in general just gives you, I mean, it's impressively quiet in here. It's so well done, and it's also nice and smooth too. We have adaptive dampers as standard, which is another nice thing you don't get in Lyriq, and so to have that is great because it helps to smooth out the ride. You can also, if you're in a sporty mood, firm them up and make it a little bit sportier feeling, which is great too. But just, it does a really good job. Now, I will say one of the huge perks for going for the premium luxury or that top trim, the platinum trim, is that you get an air ride suspension in those, which is very nice to have. I haven't tried it, so I can't say how big of an upgrade it is over this. Others have said, that this, you do feel a little bit more, through the suspension in this. Honestly, I have no issues. This is totally fine, totally smooth. I'm sure, that is a nice improvement, but, it's a law of diminishing returns, I think, with that kind of thing, because this is starting from such a high level already that I don't think there's a huge need for more, but it's nice that they do offer that if you want the ultimate luxury experience. But I'm going to go ahead and put it into the V Max mode, which is right on the steering wheel here. It's like a V mode kind of button. That puts everything in its most high performance kind of setup here. There's a regular sport mode as well if you don't want to go for full V Max, but let's turn down onto this back road and see how it accelerates. And here we go. Man, it just takes off. Wow, it's impressive. So very, very quick. We have dual motor, all-wheel drive, of course, here in all of these. And it does 615 horsepower, 649 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is 3.6 seconds is what Car and Driver got. I think the official claim is 3.7. Others have maybe gotten close to 4 for whatever reason, but I mean, this is fast. And that's the other crazy thing, that's been the whole theme, is just the amount of standard stuff you get here in this is crazy. And the fact that you get this much power as standard is wild. This is the same motor setup you get in the very expensive Celestiq. It's the same thing you get in the Lyriq V. It's a lot of power. I mean, this is 500 pounds heavier than a regular Lyriq, so I appreciate the extra power, but do you need this much power? I don't know. I think they could honestly just offer the regular Lyriq set up with 500 horsepower, that would still be plenty. So the fact that all these come with this really punchy setup is fun. But honestly, I think even for this buyer, you could get away with less power. But I mean, because that's seriously quick. I mean, we're talking almost supercar levels of acceleration out of this big 3-row thing. And so yeah, you'll have no complaints as far as the power goes in these. And it's just it's fun though. It is very much a fun experience. I also love it kind of dials up some of the electric propulsion sounds that it pipes in, which I think is kind of nice to feel like there's some connection to your throttle inputs and what the car is doing. And I think it sounds pretty cool. It's one of the better sounding fake EV kind of noises in my opinion. And also it's worth noting, so this road that we're on currently usually generates a lot of road noise, and you basically hear nothing in this. It's really, really well done. And that's just the intelligence of that noise cancellation system as well, which targets those kinds of frequencies, the tire noise frequencies, the road frequencies, to really minimize that. But coming up some corners here I always take, let's see how it handles. Now, I know most people are going to be driving these like sports cars, so I'm not going to be too in-depth with this, but it handles really well for what it is. I mean, these things weigh, I think, over 6,200 pounds. It's about 500 pounds heavier than the Lyric. But it handles itself pretty well. We got these 21-inch wheels, just obviously regular all-season tires here on these. If you do want to have the best handling possible, you can get rear wheel steer. That's available, or that's standard on the premium luxury and higher trims there, and that's going to really help with maneuverability. I love rear wheel steer, especially the way GM does it. I love it and everything that has it. So that is a really nice perk that also help you with maneuverability in parking lots and stuff. But not needed, again, something like this. The maneuverability would certainly be a nice perk, but as far as on a back road here, this handles completely fine even without it. And has a little bit of a lean, and it's set up to be luxurious feeling, which is the point, and I think, again, they set this up right instead of trying to make it stiff or trying to, go off-roady with it or something. It's just a nice street-based, luxury-focused ride. That's exactly the way you should play it for this segment. I think they nailed it with tuning, all that stuff. And again, the adaptive dampers do give you some adjustability there if you want it. And now being in their firmest setting here, you have a little bit of a heavier steering weight as well. But it's still, even I could drive around in this mode all day long and it'd be completely fine. It wouldn't ruffle my feathers at all. It's still nice and comfortable. But, oh, man, yeah, this thing, it flies. It really is impressive. So it's great that we have that. The all-wheel drive system, by the way, it's just a dual motor all-wheel drive. It's automatic and very intelligent and all that. So there's not a whole lot to elaborate on there. But having that nice low center of gravity too, with the battery pack being in the floor there, and the electric motors being lower than a gas engine would be, all helps this to handle certainly better than XT6 of old, and better than Escalade and all that stuff, which is truck based. This is really a great handler, even for something this large. But the final thing to mention is, if you do want the sportiest experience, the Platinum does come with Brembo front brakes, and so that's going to give you extra stopping power if you are interested in sportier VISTIQ here. But I think for the average driver, again, it's going to be completely fine. Now, as far as the battery info here for the VISTIQ, so it runs a 102 kilowatt hour battery, and it does 305 miles of range is the quoted figure here, and the charge rate is 190 kilowatts. They say you can get 80 miles in 10 minutes is one of the quoted things there, and that's great, but it is a fairly decently sized battery pack, and that is one area where, compared to a lot of the competitors, this doesn't charge quite as fast, but 190 kilowatts is still, I'd say, slightly above average, and still a pretty good charge rate. Now, if you're charging it at home, it comes standard with an 11.2 kilowatt level 2 charger, but you can option on a 19.2 kilowatt charge capability there if you want for level 2. So if you're doing a lot of quick level 2, you can have that as well. And there is no battery upgrade for these. That's a key difference between this and like the Rivian and some of the others that do offer a bigger battery option. We just have this battery and that's it. And again, I'd like to see if they had less power, if you got any better range, or if there was a way to do a new battery, or an upgraded battery pack. I think at the end of the day, batteries will improve, but I think 305 miles of range it's going to be completely fine. If you plan your stops, and you're, just not cannonball running it to your destination, it's going to be fine. And, just know that your charging experience, of course, will vary. Every charger is different with what it's actually going to put out, what the car can do, depending on the temperature, and a whole wide range of variables there. So just keep that in mind. But, I think for most people it should be completely fine. But obviously you want the most convenience, you'll just go for an Escalade or something and have that. And the Escalade IQ, if you do spend the extra money for that, does have like about 450 miles of range and faster charge rates in that, if that's something that you really do highly value. But now we're out on the highway here, and we're going to go ahead and put on the adaptive cruise control system, and then also put on the Super Cruise here. And so we are now hands-free. You got the green light on the steering wheel there, and we are also driving right into direct sunlight, so this is going to be a good test of this. But Super Cruise is always one of the best systems, and I already tested this earlier this week, and I've tested Super Cruise a lot. I've done road trips in Super Cruise. I've done a lot of Super Cruise driving, and it's always fantastic. Now, it's not perfect. There are times where it gets confused with construction zones, or it gets overwhelmed in certain instances, and you do have to take over. It's not going to be completely foolproof, but it is more advanced than it's ever been. It now does some regular 2-lane roads. It now also, like I said, if you have your navigation in the built-in Google Maps here, it will navigate those on-ramps and off-ramps for you if both highways are Super Cruise enabled. And even if it isn't, it'll just get you into the right lane and get you set up so that then you take over for the interchange, and then it comes back on once you're on the next highway or whatever. So it's really a very well done system. And the thing that I love about it is that again, we have the driver monitoring to make sure that you're actually paying attention, but it's a reliable system. I've been able to relax with this system, and obviously again, you still got to keep your eyes on the road and be paying attention, but it's really the road trip champ. I mean, any of these Cadillacs are a Super Cruise, but especially if you are in something like this. I mean, like Rivian's starting to do some hands-free stuff, and there's others that are making attempts to go towards that, but really this is still the standard in my opinion in the industry. Super Cruise is fantastic. I love it. And otherwise, as far as all the other safety tech, by the way, Super Cruise comes standard for 3 years. It is a subscription after that, but if you're doing a lease on one of these or something, you'll have it the whole time. But everything else is standard, and there is no subscription for that stuff. So adaptive cruise with lane keep assist is all standard. The 360 camera, which also some others charge you extra for, that is standard. You have rear automatic braking, that's standard at low speeds there. Automatic emergency braking in the front here is standard. Blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, everything you can think of, it all comes standard. There's not a single option box to check for safety stuff in this, which is also a nice difference to some of the others that do charge you extra for stuff. I love that it's all standard here in this, and it's a super relaxing experience whenever you are just sitting back doing nothing but watching everything go by. I absolutely love Super Cruise, and it's one of the biggest selling perks for this over the competitors, I think, in my opinion. And so also while we're on the highway too, 60 miles per hour here, pretty quiet, very nice and smooth. I do feel the occasional jitter in the suspension, and that's where I think the air ride would certainly be superior, but still very luxurious, and these nice soft seats soak up some of the minor stuff too. One other cool thing, which is just kind of a convenience thing in my opinion, is night vision. You can get night vision. That's on the premium luxury trim and higher. That and the platinum have the night vision, which is pretty cool. Cadillac has a pretty good night vision system. I've tried it out in Escalade in the past as well. So just know that's another thing as far as visibility goes. If you want to have excellent nighttime visibility, night vision, it's hard to beat. A very cool party trick if nothing else. Another little thing to mention, if you do happen to want to tow in these do 5,000 pounds of towing, which is pretty standard for stuff like this when you're not talking about actual truck-based SUVs. Obviously, if you want to tow, Escalade is going to be the way to go there too. But for mild stuff, 5,000 is still gonna do plenty of stuff, and nice that you do have that capability here in an EV. Now, as far as efficiency goes, I'll put the MPGe numbers up there on the screen, but what I've observed here, because it measures your efficiency in miles per kilowatt hour, which I think is a better way to do it, honestly. So what I've been getting here during my week of driving here, I've been averaging 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour, which is low. I mean, again, this is a large vehicle, even though they worked really hard to get the aerodynamic profile to be better. It's just that, you know, it's a big, heavy vehicle with a bunch of power, and that's gonna, you know, cost you a little bit. So I mean, this is better certainly than what you get with the truck-based, you know, like the Hummer EVs and stuff like that. You know, those are even worse. But, you know, compared to Lyriq, where you're probably going to be getting, you know, over 3 miles per kilowatt hour, I mean, you are going to take a hit in efficiency with that. You already have a little bit less range than Lyriq, you know, 10 or 15 miles, but, you know, expect your battery to probably drain a little quicker in this if you're coming out of Lyriq. Just, you know, keep that in mind. You know, you're going to pay a penalty for the extra size and space, but, you know, again, as long as you got, you know, good charging at home, you know, you'll be able to keep this thing going no problem, and have all the, you know, luxurious perks of never having to visit a gas station. And then the last thing to really mention here, though, is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So let's get into that. So the 2026 VISTIQ starts at $79,090. This one is $81,315 as tested for this sport trim, and fully loaded for a Platinum, you'll pay $99,000. If you're looking for the best price possible on a VISTIQ or any vehicle, you're definitely going to head over to maranmotoring.com and click on the new car quotes page. There you'll get access to dealer invoice pricing, as well as getting connected with the local dealer, so you can check out the VISTIQ for yourself and see what you think about it. So there's going to be a link in the description, as well as one in a pinned comment to take you straight to that site and get you all that info. Now, as far as how the VISTIQ compares to the competition, there's really only 2 competitors currently. The closest competitor is the Rivian R1S, which does start $2,000 less, but that version has 35 less miles of range and less power, and does less hands-free driving. And if you want one with comparable equipment and power to this $81,000 sport trim, you'll have to spend about $91,500 for that Rivian and deal with a more unreliable key as well. The perks of the R1S are faster charging, a frunk for extra cargo space, and the option for a bigger battery to do up to 410 miles of range, if you're willing to pay another $7,000 on top of the already, you know, $92,000 price tag. The other main competitor is the Volvo EX90, which doesn't have quite as much power, doesn't do hands-free driving, doesn't have a sunshade for its glass roof, and is over 7 inches shorter, so it won't be quite as spacious inside either. But it does do faster charging, gives you a small frunk, and importantly, gives you Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Comparably equipped to this, though, with an air suspension included, it'll run you $93,000. Although if you're okay with just 400 horsepower, no massaging seats, and a Bose stereo with just 14 speakers instead of the 25 of the Bowers & Wilkins stereo that's available in these, you'll basically match the VISTIQ's price, with a Volvo costing $80,495. But that illustrates just how much better of a value the VISTIQ is, that you have to do without all these things in the Volvo just to match the VISTIQ on price. The only other 2 competitors in this segment are the Lucid Gravity, that comparably equipped will cost you $32,000 more, and the Tesla Model X, that will cost over $110,000 and still gives you less stuff than the $81,000 VISTIQ. So as you can see, the VISTIQ is objectively the best value in this segment, hands down by a long shot. But yeah, bottom line, I just think that these things are so well priced, they're so well done as far as, again, all the driver inputs, all the interior stuff, everything is just so impressive in every way, and it's basically CarPlay away from perfection. that's still just a gigantic sticking point, and you know, that's the kind of thing that I think will push people into, you know, the Volvo or, you know, some of the others. Although, you know, again, Rivian and Tesla don't have it either, so Cadillac is certainly not alone. But if it had that, that would also give it an extra edge over the Rivian and the Tesla, that, you know, right now we don't have that perk. And so maybe someday they will cave and give people the luxury of choice, which is an ultimate luxury that we don't have here still. But aside from that, everything else is a top-notch luxury experience here in the VISTIQ. I absolutely love it. Highly recommend it if, you know, CarPlay isn't a deal breaker. These are just so well done. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2026 VISTIQ. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Cadillac for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.